That's true.
Okay, so this is a new episode to discuss about misconceptions against women, or I would say sexism in Torah, as claimed by this unknown author on this website called evilbible.com. So we have seen this article called Sexism in Torah, and Sherin, you and I, we looked into these different misconceptions this unknown author has put, and in the past few episodes we have been discussing those misconceptions and trying to refute those claims with the evidence and the explanation of the text. So in this particular episode we would talk about another family. The families seems to be very popular in our discussion, like we discussed about Lot's family. Now we'll move on and discuss about the family of Judah. So the author of this article quotes Genesis chapter 38 verses 16 to 24 to mention the story of a man named Judah who lived with his widowed daughter-in-law. So the author claims that his daughter-in-law was a grieving widow and she was wearing veils of mourning, which Judah, the author calls him a rather stupid man, maybe he was, I don't know, mistook for the clothing of a prostitute. He ended up, again, another question on impregnating. The author says Judah ended up impregnating his daughter-in-law and she left the city. So let's take some time to examine this statement, Sherin.
Yes, so this again is a case where the entire background is not talked about. Just as you rightly mentioned, what is convenient to make a point, the point that she wants to convey, she has taken that part of the story that again is not told correctly, which we will see now. Now, because this is an interesting story, why don't we see what the background of the story is? Now, Judah, most people would know who Judah is. Yes, so Judah is the son of Jacob, one of the 12 sons, and Judah has 3 sons. So the older one is Er, his name is Er, and he was married to this woman called Tamar. And he dies because God kills him because he was a wicked man. So Er dies, and it was the custom in Israel that if a man dies without a child, then it was the responsibility of the man's brother to marry his brother's wife and thereby preserve the family line. So the second son of Judah, Onan, was supposed to now marry Tamar, which Judah gives Onan in marriage to Tamar. But Onan, again, he is a wicked guy too. He does not want to bring a child in order to preserve his brother's family line. Therefore, he refuses to give a child to Tamar. And God is absolutely displeased with this action. And God kills Onan. It's clearly stated in Genesis 38 what happens. God, in fact, punishes Onan because he failed his duty to Tamar. Tamar's rightful, the right to a child through Onan, he withheld. So therefore, God punishes Onan. So that itself shows us that God is no sexist. In fact, God is grieved with the fact that Tamar was denied her right and thereby preserve the family line. And so God comes into action and punishes Onan and strikes him dead. That is no silly matter. It's a very serious thing. So here, Tamar is favored by God and Onan is killed because he failed his duty to Tamar. So that is the background of the story. Now what should Judah do? Judah should give his third son, his name is Shelah, to Tamar. But now Judah is scared. 2 of my sons were married to Tamar and both of them died. So even in some of our circles, we would have that fear. Oh, if my third son marries, then what would happen? So Judah thought my third son also would die. So he didn't want Tamar and Shelah to get married. So he asked Tamar to go back to her father's house and stay there till Shelah grew up. So that was under the assumption that when he grows up, I'll give you in marriage. But then Judah fails to do that. So first point is that when this incident happens, Tamar was not staying with her father-in-law. So that the author got wrong. Tamar was in her father's house in another town and Judah was in his town.
Right.
Yes.
That's one incorrect statement there. And now let me
That's
read
right.
the following verses, which gives us the intent of Tamar's action. Genesis chapter
That's right.
38 and verse 14. So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him
Yes.
as a wife. When Judah
That's right.
saw her, he thought she was a harlot because she had covered her face. So again, Genesis chapter 38 verse 15 says, when Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she covered her face. So it's clear from the passage that it was not the
That's right.
widow's covering that Judah mistook for the prostitute's veil, right?
That's right. So intentionally here we see Tamar removing her widow's garments and putting on a prostitute dress. Of course, a widow's garment and a prostitute's veil is not going to be same or even similar.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so there's a clear distinction there. She was no longer dressed up as a widow, but as a prostitute. And as you just now read, the intent behind this was very clear. When she came to know that her father-in-law was not going to give his son to her as husband, she wanted some kind of vengeance take, some kind of vengeance. So now I will show him what I can do, So some kind of intent, an evil intent is actually behind this action of Tamar. And therefore she dresses herself up as a prostitute, knowing that Judah is in town, has come to this town. And Judah, of course, did not recognize her because she had covered her face. And he does impregnate her, which is wrong. To lie down with a prostitute is definitely wrong. God condemns any such activity outside marriage. So the God of the Bible, again, does not support the action of Judah. What he did is absolutely wrong. And so was Tamar wrong. So it is not whether Judah was wrong or Tamar was wrong. In God's eyes, both did what was displeasing to him, and both are equally responsible for what happened. But to say that Judah impregnated Tamar is just a small portion of that story when Tamar had schemed the whole thing, just like how we saw in the case of Lot's daughters.
Right. So this is another case where the author ignores the fact that two men were struck dead by God as they did not fulfill the duty towards this woman.
That's right.
Tamar. But the fact that Tamar and Judah, her father-in-law, commit sin is highlighted conveniently, missing the point that it is Tamar who took the matter into her own hands. Right?
That's right.
So let's see what else has to this story. The author mentioned that on a later date, Judah sees this young woman again, which is Tamar, and demanded that she be burned for being a prostitute. And she makes a statement like, I like how only the women is punished when they both engaged in this sexual act. It wasn't until Judah recognized the woman as his daughter-in-law and she was with child, then he decided to kill her. So basically what the author is saying is Judah can commit incest, use a prostitute, even if he's mistaken perception, and he impregnated a much younger woman, yet he thinks she's the one deserving death. So that's the point this author is trying to put across.
Yes. Again, this is a historical account of what happened, and this fits in and supports the central theme of the Bible, that man is totally depraved and corrupted and could go to any length in his sinful behavior. Apart from grace and the mercy of God, we are all like Judah, because even now in our culture, in our society, we find a small fault with someone else and we are quick to judge them, when we ourselves could be indulging in the same activity, in the same sin, like Jesus Christ in Matthew chapter 7 quotes, when you have a log in your eye, you're busy taking out speck from your brother's eye. That's exactly what Judah did. Judah did exactly the same sin that Tamar has committed in this case, but he was quick to judge Tamar and call her out and, judge her and even say that she should be burned, when he himself has done the same thing. Of course, no one knows except Tamar that he is the one, who is the father of Tamar's child, so that is something that's hidden at this point of time. But then one more thing we see is when Judah actually recognizes that it is Tamar and he is the one who went and, impregnated her, then we see that Judah does not demand her burning. And then he also says that it is recorded that he did not go into her again.
Yeah.
So this is not a case of incest actually, because Judah lied with Tamar when he did not realize that it was Tamar, because the moment he realizes it is Tamar, he does not have any other sexual relations with her. So we cannot actually classify this as a case of incest, because if he knew it was Tamar, he wouldn't have done it. Now, it does not make what he did right. You know,
Yeah.
it is as sinful as it can be, and in God's eyes, both deserve rightful judgment.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well said. In fact, the genealogy of Christ has women whose lives were far from ideal. As we look into the story, it is also significant
Yes.
that Tamar appears in the genealogy of Messiah, Christ, in Matthew chapter 1. This is an example
Yes.
how God elevates women who have lives, as I mentioned, far from perfect. And Jesus was gracious not only to be born into the bloodline, but make sure the names are mentioned in the genealogy. And with this, I would argue that it is actually the opposite of what sexism against women should be, right? The women
That's right.
with a shady background, women who made some wrong choices.
Wrong choices, yes.
They were actually shown grace, and some of them even found their names in the genealogy of Christ, right?
That is right.
Right.
That is right.
So as we discussed the family of Judah and the claims that Judah and Tamar, Judah slept with Tamar, and it's in a case of incest. We refuted those claims, and we also discussed on the fact that it's not Judah that took the initiative, though he went and he thought he saw a prostitute, but it was his daughter-in-law, but it was Tamar who initiated this action, right? With this, we can we can wrap up our discussion to refute these pointers with respect to this story of Judah. And so with this, goodbye till we meet again in another episode to discuss on the remaining misconceptions on sexism in Torah from the evilbible.com. So keep watching.